think it is.
You know, being a man of science, witches.
Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and here's some superheroes dressed in red that lost their vision. Today I learned that something isn't beautiful because it lasts, and sadly Wandavision has come to an end. That doesn't mean the Kevin Spoilers Show is over though, and episode 9 has a lot to unpack from it. Throughout this video we're going to be breaking down the plot, Easter eggs, things you missed, and a timeline on where things could be going in the future of the MCU. There will be heavy spoilers here, so if you're living in a dream world where you haven't had a chance to check out the end, then I highly recommend that you check out now. If you've enjoyed our coverage since the start of the show, then please click the thumbs up button and make sure you subscribe, as I'll love you 3000. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into the breakdown. Okay, so episode 8 ended with Agatha revealing to Wanda that she's a witch. Outside the Hex, we learned that Hayward had activated Project Cataract, called that because cataracts turn your eyes white, and he had a white vision. Puns, puns, puns. Now what's really interesting is that this episode really cements how history is in some way repeating itself, and there are actually several parallels in the story to Wanda's childhood. As a kid, she lived in this bubble of sitcoms with her family, which we saw firsthand was attacked by military forces that swarmed it from the outside. This is very much being mirrored in the Hex itself, which is a literal bubble of sitcoms that she and her family live in. On the outside there is of course the military, who are represented by S.W.O.R.D, and they send in a weapon in an attempt to destroy Wanda and her family. Wanda likely feels that her childhood was the last moment that she was truly happy, and now she refuses to go down without a fight. That isn't where the parallels stop though, and it was only upon rewatching the series that I realised the two villains of the piece were perfect reflections of Wanda and her actions. First we have Hayward, who somewhat lives in this reality where he's completely just in his actions, even at the expense of others. This is similar to how Wanda changed those within the Hex to fit the narrative that she thought was best for them to live their lives, but in doing so she completely stripped them of control. Similar to Wanda, Hayward has altered videos to make things appear a certain way, and both have a version of Vision that they've pretty much stripped of free will. Now their arcs do of course differ towards the end, which we'll talk about later in the video, but there's also Agatha, who too mirrors Wanda. She's a witch that lost her family at a young age, and not having a guiding force has potentially sent her down a dark path. Now in episode 8, a line that stuck out to me was Agatha stating that she could be good, and I think this is something that we'll also see Wanda wrestle with going forward. She's very much on a similar sort of path to Jean Grey in the Dark Phoenix saga, in which she's been granted a vast amount of power far beyond her control, and this ultimately makes her very dangerous. Either way, it looks like the MCU is shaping up to bring a lot more witches into it, and right now I feel like Mr. Dell in Far From Home.
Came for science, we're leaving because of witches. Welcome to the new Dark Ages.
We pick up immediately after the events of episode 8 with Wanda and Agatha facing down in the street. Away from the runes, Wanda is able to use her power. However, this was actually part of Agatha's plan, and as we saw in her origin story, the character is able to absorb the energy of spells. Wielding chaos magic, it's revealed that what Agatha really wants is for Wanda to surrender her powers to her, and in exchange, she'll allow her to keep Westview. Wanda thinks outside the box, and instead of firing directly at her, she throws a car, which I think might have been hers from the last episode. However, this does appear at the end, but the scarlet colour, it was there for some reason. Now, shoutouts to Johnny Wilkinson for pointing out that this is actually a callback to Civil War, in which Wanda did the same thing to Tony. Under the house we see Agatha's boots, and this is a nod to the Wizard of Oz, namely when Dorothy killed the Wicked Witch of the East. So what's that make Agatha? The Wicked Witch of the West View, eh? Having that? Now, you might notice that Agatha has black fingers, and in fiction this is also the sign of a witch. White Vision arrives, and though he repeats the same greeting that Hex Vision did upon materializing, it's clear that he doesn't want to give her a big hug. I was hoping that there was still a bit of him left in there, but he puts his hands to Wanda's head like he's making her an idiot sandwich and simply tries to crush it. We of course saw a similar move when Vision did this to Ultron, and it's clear that this is often part of his plan of attack. Agatha shows back up and we see Wanda say this is our home, to which Vision replies, "Let's fight for it." This line is actually a callback to episode 2, in which Wanda said,
"This is our home now. I want us to fit in."
Now throughout the series, Wanda has done whatever she can to stay in Westview, and at this moment it's clear she's willing to fight for the death in order for the illusion to remain. This of course changes throughout the episode, and it definitely feels like she goes on an arc throughout this journey that feels true to her character. Jump to Quicksilver holding Monica hostage, and I hope she doesn't need the toilet because Pooper's gonna poop. Now I forgot to mention last time that the Pietro name could be a play on the Paul McCartney theory, which states that the real Paul McCartney died in a car crash during the 60s. Rather than continuing the band without him, it was thought that Paul was replaced by a man who had plastic surgery to look identical. Pietro being changed to Pietro was a reference to how a quote-unquote fake one replaced Wanda's brother, and we were all just supposed to go along with it. Now at this moment he's far superior power-wise to Monica, and the double vision battle continues whilst Wanda and Agatha go head to head. Now I love how White Vision goes to rip the Mind Stone out of Vision's head, and this is of course a callback to the way that Thanos killed him in Infinity War. However, he phases through it, and if you were wondering why he didn't do this to the Mad Titan, it's because after being stabbed he had difficulty phasing. Now White Vision attempts to force the Hex version outside of the bubble, as this will of course tear him apart. Hayward explains his diabolical plan to Jimmy Woo, and due to the show being cancelled, Hayward can edit everything together similar to how Wanda did to make it look like the Hex and White One were one and the same. Now Hayward seems like a great guy, yeah, but the book stops at his terrible Vision pun, and after this, I tell you what mate, I hate you. Unable to woo Jimmy, he's thrown in a barn, but due to his fast hands after practicing magic, not only has he nabbed a phone, he's also got a way to bust out of the handcuffs. The guy calls Quantico, and we cut to Wanda walking through the town, as well as the appliance store that we saw in the intro to episode 3. The mailman says, "Don't shoot me, I'm just a messenger," which is of course a callback to when he said the same thing in episode 2. Because of this, I do still kind of feel like he's the person under witness protection, but as we don't get answers, I'm not going to stick my hat on that. They probably just forgot about it. Now Agatha talks about the Darkhold, and we now have it confirmed that it was indeed the book in the basement of her home. This is an expansive collection of spells that was written by the Dark Lord Cuthon on indestructible parchment, and Agatha warps in whilst reading its prophecy. Now it did appear in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but it now seems that that version has been completely wiped in favour of this, and yeah, unfortunately it doesn't seem like they're ever going to be part of the MCU again. Agatha frees Dottie, and you better drop your fan theories about her being Mephisto, because she's a nice woman. What do you mean I'm responsible for 90% of those theories? Get out of here! Now after freeing the town of their I'm sorry for all those bad fan theories by the way, yeah, I'm really sorry. Now after freeing the town of their illusion, they rush to her and we jump to Quicksilver's man cave to learn that he's actually Ralph Boner. Wait, what? You wasted this entire character on a D joke? No, I don't know if I'm feeling that. Now, of all the people I've suspected it is, I had no idea that this was actually him, and I suppose I have to give hats off to Marvel for completely blindsiding me with that reveal. However, I do feel disappointed that he's absolutely no one in the grand scheme of things, and it just feels like they dropped the ball because it could have been someone important, but no, it's a D joke. Now I'm guessing we'll never get this version of Quicksilver in the MCU now, and it definitely closes a lot more doors than it opens. It was announced yesterday that the X-Men reboot will be called The Mutants, and this was actually the original name that Stan Lee wanted to go with. So it seems like we will be getting mainly recasts and potentially a new origin story for them in the MCU, though that's pure speculation at the moment. Now Monica realises that because he's a real person, Agatha has him under control, and she snatches his necklace, which is the source of the possession. Her eyes glow purple when doing this, and you may notice that they reflect the energy of what's being displayed. Monica can see different frequencies, and this is why they change colour depending on what's being viewed. The townspeople, poisoned by Wanda's grief, just want to be let go, and she lashes out, strangling all of them. It's at this point I noticed her hand is also starting to turn black, and shoutouts to Paul Fox for pointing that out to me in the promotional photo for the episode. Now Agatha, though often portrayed as a villain at this point, I think slowly becomes more like the mentor that she was in the comics. She clearly states that heroes don't torture people, and this makes Wanda start to rip a tear in the Hex so that the townfolk can escape. However, this also tears Vision apart, along with her kids who race to the square. Now you may notice that as they're collapsing, they sort of split off into what looks like Tetris blocks. This is actually a callback to House of M, in which Wanda too appeared in this way on one of its most famous covers. The hex has to exist in order for her family to, and thus she relinquishes the tear so that they can survive. This allows Agatha to start absorbing her powers, which makes her body start to wither, similar to the witches from the opening of the prior entry. Surrounded by Agatha, White Vision and Sword, Ish goes down, and I got a lot of Incredibles vibes here, especially from this moment. White Vision blasts the Hex one into the library that you might remember from episode 2, and this was the place where Vision got gum stuck in his gears. He broke, and therefore it does feel quite fitting that one of the big fights takes place here too, and all in all I feel like it's a great little action scene. Now while we're here, Paul, I want a bloody word with you. Okay, so yesterday Paul Bettany did announce that the cameo he'd been teasing was him, and as we guessed, it was Bettany all along. I know a lot of people are disappointed in this, but the clues were there if you are paying attention. And what do you mean it's my fault for coming up with more stupid fan theories? Look, we'll skip that. Now, White Vision's prime directive is to destroy the Vision, and when the Hex one reveals he's not the true one, your boy needs some answers. Across the town, the family battle, and weirdly, Doctor Strange never shows up. Now, I was certain that he would, and the fact that he doesn't kinda breaks the universe for me. Strange is supposed to be involved with protecting reality, but my guy, where were you, yeah? We were all rooting for you, but you didn't show up. Now, it was also thought that Hayward in some ways would end up working with the Avengers, but after he tries to gun down Billy and Tommy, I don't think he's redeemable. Luckily, Monica steps in and stops this from going on to Disney Star, and she alters the speed of the bullets as they pass through her body. Cut back to Double Vision, and they have a conversation steeped in philosophy, similar to something that Vision had with Ultron all the way back in the second Avengers movie. They discuss a method of thinking that I've actually long been fascinated with, so I was glad to see something I love finally acknowledge it. In layman's terms, it basically centers around a ship that has wooden parts of its hull replaced slowly over time. The planks are taken from it, and in their place, renewed ones are put down. However, those original planks are used as a way to craft a new ship bit by bit, and the question lies in which is the true ship, something that we see both visions reflect upon. The white one is the original, however, the one with the thoughts and feelings of the original is the Hex one, so who the true Vision is holds a lot of questions. They surmise that they are both the true versions, and the Hex version reveals that it's almost impossible to wipe the original's memory, which he then restores. Now in the comics there was an arc in which two Visions existed, with one coming from an alternate universe and the other having the personality of a Buckingham Palace god. This was similar to this moment in which there was sort of both important elements of the character existing in separate entities. This allowed the consciousness of one to be placed into the other in order to restore the true version, and that has been changed slightly here, but it does hold in keeping with the source material. White Vision flies off, likely to return again, and Wanda does the speed sneak on Agatha that we've seen her doing in Age of Ultron. After filling her head with an illusion, we travel back to her trial in 1693. Though this haunts her initially, Wanda being a more powerful witch allows Agatha's subconscious to have the witches turn on her and they stick her on the pyre. Agatha tries to bargain with her, and in exchange for handing over her powers, she promises to hold Westview in place, but Wanda rejects this and the two go to the skies. Wanda forces her powers onto her, and initially it seems like she's unburdening herself. However, as we guessed last time, runes play a big part in the key to defeating Agatha, and it's revealed that Wanda has actually created these on the outskirts of the Hex. The runes themselves did first appear in hexagons, and I appreciate that they turned this full thing into a way to depower Agatha. Wanda becomes the Scarlet Witch after absorbing all of Agatha's powers from the Dark Dimension, as well as her own. Agatha realizes that she's actually helped to create her, and I do get a feeling of regret from her. Now I do actually think going forward, Agatha will fill the shoes of a mentor figure to the character. She says she's going to need her, and earlier in the episode stated that the Scarlet Witch's power is stronger than the Sorcerer Supreme's, making me think that this line was put in place as she will be facing off against Strange. I think this may lead to Wanda needing to be reined in, and as Agatha is a powerful witch, Wanda will turn to her as a way to figure out how to control the power that she's been cursed with, or blessed with, you never know. Now Agatha is someone who pretty much was given too much power, but she never had a mentor figure and thus fell by the wayside. Therefore, they do share a lot of similarities with branching paths, and I feel like they mirror each other in a number of ways. Wanda casts her in a hex spell as the nosy neighbour, and we can see behind her eyes that she's breaking, but she's unable to break this illusion. Wanda attracts the hex and the family head home, and then put the twins to bed. Now this shared bedroom aesthetic is often seen in sitcoms, and it's a way for the creators to have the good night scene play out with all the characters involved. It's a really heartbreaking moment, but it seems like they will be back in some form or another, but I'll talk about this more towards the end of the breakdown. Now as the hex strips back, we see the real West view, which is of course still devastated by the snap. Shoutouts to James on Twitter for pointing out that the scene in which the pair say goodbye to each other is almost shot for shot the same as the one in Infinity War. In that moment they of course wanted to run away together, but were unable to, and the hex has very much been the escape that they promised each other. It culminates in a finale we ended visioned, and though I think some people are a bit disappointed in the ending, I think it was important for the eventual growth of Wanda. Wandavision as a whole was about her running away from the truth that Vision had died. Rather than facing up to the reality of the matter, she created this false one in which she was married, her brother was alive, and she had a family much like the one she lost. Clearly she couldn't accept the truth, and any time it was brought up she shut the conversation down faster than you do when Armie Hammer starts talking about how he wants to come over for dinner. Topical joke there. Now Wanda hasn't been able to let go, and grief has destroyed her life and the ones around her. However, grief is simply love persevering, and the longer that she's tried to hold on to things, the more they've fallen apart. Therefore, the only true growth for the character was to accept that Vision was gone, and I feel like this is what we get in the finale. If Vision simply returned to normal, then she would pretty much be in the same position that she was at the start of the series, where she believed that magic could solve all her problems. Wanda states he's a symbol of her grief, but also her love, which does feel like an emotional gut punch. He is a memory made real, and it's a really sad farewell that will probably be retconned the second White Vision shows up. Yeah, you know it's going that way. Now we cut back to the lot that Vision bought for them to grow old in, and Wanda leaves. She's stared down by the townsfolk, who will of course always see her in a certain way, and this could potentially be setting up how humanity hates and fears the mutants. Wanda and Monica meet, but rather than being judgmental, she says that she can relate to her grief after losing her mother. Monica was of course trapped in the Hex too, and it's nice that she at least doesn't hate her. As the FBI arrive, Wanda flies out of Westview onto our second post-credits scene. The first one though continues in the location, with Jimmy assigning jobs like Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive. Hayward is arrested, and this is likely something that would have happened to Wanda, but she's too powerful to take in. I really feel like this is where the pair's paths diverge, and Wanda being left to her own devices could spell trouble for the world. From here, Monica is summoned to the Coronet movie theatre, and we get a big reveal. It turns out that she's headed to space, as we learn from a scroll that she's been summoned by what I believe is Nick Fury. Now why I'm saying that instead of Talos is because the former was in space at the end of Far From Home, and we know from that film that Talos is on Earth. In the comics, S.W.O.R.D. typically operated in space, and with Monica wearing that symbol proudly on her uniform, it seems like the organisation will be travelling that way instead of staying earthbound. We then cut to Wanda in what I believe is Wundagore Mountain, and this ties back to her comic book roots, as several of the characters that she interacted with during the Vision and the Scarlet Witch graphic novel originated from this location. She now possesses the Darkhold, and similar to Doctor Strange, has a copy of herself reading it whilst her other one moves about. Now, this is of course, yeah, you guessed it, Mephisto. I'm just kidding you, I just had to get that one last theory in. No, but what I believe is going on here is that Wanda is using the astral plane to learn about the prophecy as well as magic in general. If you cast your mind back to Doctor Strange, you may remember that he too did something similar whilst learning spells. I believe that this is exactly what's going on here. I'm going to be going into more depth on this later in the video today, but I don't think there's actually two versions of Wanda, as we know that sorcerers can duplicate themselves. From here she hears the cries of her children, and this is likely setting up the multiverse of madness. Both of the kid actors did post on their Instagram back in November that they were in London, which is where and when that film was being shot. It was long thought that they might age up in the series, and come the end of it the pair would form the Young Avengers. However, it looks like going forward that these two characters will grow up along with the MCU, and they will pretty much remain at that age that the actors are for the foreseeable future. I think that Wanda might try and bring them back by focusing her power, and because they shouldn't really exist, that this will cause issues. People are already terrified of her abilities, and if she can bring people to life that possess powers, then this will cause more issues. I very much view the next movie as being similar to Civil War, with Strange and Wanda facing off with a big bad that manipulates them in the background, but enough theorizing here, I've got enough wrong already. Going forward though, I think there's going to be a lot of things that fans will be happy about, even if they're disappointed in the show, and I'd of course love to hear your thoughts on the post-credit scene. Okay, so that wraps up episode 9, and what a bittersweet ending it was. For the next part of the video, we're going to be discussing my general thoughts before moving into where things are likely going into the future. Now this show is something I feel like I've been totally invested in over the last 8 weeks, and I can't remember a TV series that's had me coming back week after week, desperate to know the answers. I feel like there may be some people that are disappointed in certain elements of the finale, and that there will be a large group who are unhappy that we didn't get every single reveal that we were hoping for. However, the MCU is an ongoing story, and Matt Shakman, a director on the show, has stated that things that didn't pay off here will be discussed more in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That's why, even though I do feel slightly disappointed with certain elements, I know they will deliver eventually, because let's face it, Marvel are the best in the biz when it comes to set up an eventual payoff. I feel like I'm focusing on what was missing now though, rather than what we got, and what we got was truly something special. Firstly, the show completely nailed the sitcom aesthetic, and every episode centered around a certain time period managed to recapture the sitcoms that they were aping to great effect. There's a level of attention to detail here that deserves to be applauded, and I can't think of another show off the top of my head that week to week accomplished what it was trying to do this well from a set and costume level. Then there's the performances, and to me both Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany completely knocked it out the park. They took two characters that I wasn't massively enamored with and easily made them some of the best in the MCU. Their romance was always something that I was never too hot on, but that one scene in episode 8 completely changed my opinion on that, and everything just made sense. This show was incredible, and I think easily the most unique property in the MCU, and also probably one of the best. I cannot wait to see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, as well as the rest of the Disney Plus shows, as if they're all this level of quality, then it's going to continue the golden age of comic book adaptations that we're currently living in. Now, speaking of how things will be handled in the future, I thought I'd draw up a timeline so that everything is a lot easier to follow and comprehend. If you like this, let me know, as I will be updating this as the shows go on, and hopefully by the end of it we've got a big map of how every single thing interacts. Now firstly, I'm going to start with the Avengers, sort of being the nexus that things diverted from. During this time, Loki stole the Tesseract and created a branched reality which his show will be focusing on. That releases on June 11th, and it will see him working with the TVA as he cleans up issues caused by the multiverse. I'm using red here because it's a branched timeline, and also because I do like colouring in. Now from Avengers, everything in the main timeline happens the way it does until we get to Endgame, which is where the order sort of changes from what we know. From this offshoot we have Wandavision, along with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which are happening roughly around the same time. Far From Home happens 8 months after this time period, and I'm guessing because of the cliffhanger that No Way Home happens almost immediately after this. Now Wandavision sets up a big arc for Monica Rambeau, and it looks like she will feature in Ms. Marvel, helping to introduce that character and her power set. From here, both heroes are going to show up in Captain Marvel 2, which I'm guessing will bring a lot of things together. Lastly is Doctor Strange 2, and it's said that Elizabeth Olsen will appear in No Way Home before she gets a far more fleshed out role in the Multiverse of Madness. So that's the way things look in terms of the branching storylines on Disney Plus and the MCU. We also have Black Panther 2, the Eternals coming up, but Black Widow, Hawkeye, and so many more things coming down the line There's never really been a better time to be a Marvel maniac. Anyway, that wraps up the video, and thank you for all your kind comments and support over the last 8 weeks. I will of course be back to cover Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so I hope to see you then, and in the meantime I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode and the series as a whole. As a thank you for interacting with the video, you'll be entered into a prize drawn on the 31st of March, in which we're giving away 3 copies of a Marvel 4K box set of your choice. All you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the episode. The winners of last month's competition are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of the latest Godzilla vs. Kong trailers, which will be linked on screen right now. We've gone over them from top to bottom and pointed out all the things you've missed, and also discussed what to expect in the movie. If not, well, thanks for sticking with me. I've been Paul, yeah? I hate goodbyes, but hopefully I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.